dance, chemistry kind of theme. All right, so what I've got is I've got the README up on GitHub in front of me, and I'm going to go through all of the additions that I've made. There's a section titled Additions to Sonic Potions Firmware 037. So I'm just going to go through that in order, just to give you some idea of what I had in mind when I was developing the feature. I started out working on the LXR as a way of kind of making it easier to do live performances, and then kind of adding some additional synthesis options when I thought it would be a good idea to do so. So going down the list, starting out in general UI, so the morph kit parameter quick access. So what that is if you are in some editing page, you click in with the encoder, this gives you oscillator coarse, you press shift, and this gives you the morph parameter, and then you can adjust it and save the morph value directly from that parameter view. It makes it a little faster than having to save the kit and load it as a morph kit every time you want to just change one parameter. And then realign patterns shortcut. All right, to show that one, let me actually load an all file so we can get some pattern data in there. So that's the pattern that I've got loaded up. So what this does is if I'm playing the pattern and let's say I want to adjust the length of the pattern. So I go in here, adjust the length, adjust the length, adjust the length, length. Okay. Now I'll put those all back to 16. Yeah, they're all on 16. Now the pattern is still kind of super out of order. So what I do is go into performance mode, press this a couple of times, and when it registers you've reselected the same pattern, it just lines everything up to the master clock again, and you get a nice lined up pattern that's the same as it was before. So you can get the different tracks out of sync if you're changing the length, or if you're changing the step scale to make the patterns different lengths, or if you're messing with things under the Euclidean generator with the rotation and the substep rotation. So the potentiometer assignments in load, save, reworked, the next thing on the list. So what that is pretty basic. So if I just go into the save page, let's pick, so there's the one that I loaded. Let me go to some empty slot. So basically all that means is this one will select the type, so it'll move the cursor up here or that way. This one will select the, that will select the save type. This one will select the cursor position. And then the two knobs here are both assigned to characters. So this knob on the left here has got all of the capital letters on the left end of it, and then it's got numbers kind of in the middle-ish. And this knob over here has got the lowercase letters down here, and then both of them have lots of other random characters on the remainder of the track. And the encoder, of course, you can cycle through them in the normal order as before. Okay, so that's that feature. Shift as toggle. Okay, so what that is if I go into the global menu, there is the option shift as toggle, and if I turn that on and I go back, let's go into step mode, play the pattern. Now if I press shift, LED stays lit to let you know that shift is active, and then I can just go and add some extra steps. So that's basically just to make it easier to do step editing in the step mode. You don't have to keep holding shift every time you want to go and add steps in there. You just have to remember to toggle it on and off again. easy to forget, and you don't want to leave it on and press the play button because that will reset your kit, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But that's there. I recommend not leaving it on permanently, but if you want to do a lot of editing in the step menu, or you're writing lots of automation, it can make it a little bit easier to do that stuff. The encoder acceleration. So I messed around quite a lot with the encoder in the past few weeks. So let me turn that off. So let's say I go back into Oscillator. So before, one encoder step basically always translated to one number. And then if you were turning it fast, of course, it would relate to less than one number because it skipped a lot. So this one, you should be able to basically in a single turn get it up about 100 or something like that. It'll go up to X4 acceleration, and that's in the config file. So if you want to set less acceleration or more acceleration, you can do that in the file there. Yeah, so that's the encoder. Hopefully it'll be a little bit better. The only thing I should mention is if you have a really old kit that has a non-4 phases per encoder detent, I think almost all of the LXR kits should have the same type of encoder. But if you notice your encoder is super fast, then or super slow, I guess it'll be super slow, then let me know and I'll put back in the one phase per detent and 2 phase per detent implementations. Preview voice when stopped. Again, that's a pretty simple one. So if it's like this, I'm not playing the sequencer. I just go and select a voice, press the button again, and it will trigger the voice one time. So if you wanna, yeah, that's the thing. You'll notice my buttons are a little not so good these days. So yeah, that's why I do not use this particular LXR that much anymore these days. But hopefully there's people out there who will find the firmware useful that have some better performing buttons. So anyway, yeah, that's the preview. You can go and change up parameters without having to change modes or start the sequencer or whatever. Okay, so that's the end of the general UI helpers. So if I go into sound voice mode, so I need to pull up my MIDI assignments. So I think 7, and then, yep, so I've got my MIDI keyboard down here at the bottom. That's the mod wheel. So mod wheel, adjust morph. Let me reload the kit just so it sounds like how I expect. Yep. So MIDI controls morph. Also, if let me take that off the global assignment, and I'll put this one on channel 7. So now drum 1 is listening to morph. I don't really have very many parameters morphed on drum 1, but you can see that's the individual voice morph for drum 1, so it's receiving the morph on there. One-shot LFO waveforms. All right, let me go into the snare. That's probably the easiest one to hear these things. Let me set that up so it's just noise. Oh, I lost that button completely. Oh, that's fun. Let me do that on a different instrument. So I'll make this noise so we can hear what's going on. And make that nice and long. Okay, and that's got a low pass filter, so that's going to be pretty ideal. Okay. So if I go into LFO, one-shot LFO, let me do this with the one-shot square. So we want a pretty low frequency. We want maybe almost full modulation depth on that. And that's 3.3 and going into filter frequency. So now, yeah, you can hear that. I need to increase the modulation depth a little bit, maybe. So that's the one-shot square wave. Let's see, if I raise the frequency, you'll be able to yeah, so it goes up at the beginning and then down again. If I increase the offset, then it will put a little gap at the beginning, also a little bit of delay. So you hear again, my button is kind of multi-triggering it a little bit. So yeah, but yeah, so it starts low cutoff, high cutoff for the duration of the one shot, and then down again. So the one shots are pretty self-explanatory for the most part. They're the same as the other waveforms. So one shot sine, one shot triangle, one shot up saw wave, one shot down saw wave, the square one that I just showed you. Random works a little bit differently. So random will pick a random value and just hold it for the entire length of the voice, and it will re-roll the random number every time you re-trigger the voice. And then the exponential up, exponential down, exponential triangle, which is an exponential up followed by an exponential down. So that is the one-shot LFO waveforms. Disable MIDI input, that's pretty self-explanatory. That's just the 0 in the menu, so you can set global to 0 or any of the voices to 0, and then they won't respond to MIDI at all. Multi-voice trigger on the global MIDI channel, so let me put that back to 7, and let me turn off 7 on here. So let's see. If I set this, what that is if I set note here and the channel is 0, then what should happen is it will respond to only that note on the global channel. So I think the lowest note on my keyboard is the 2, octave 2. So let me set that to D2. Yep, so now the first drum voice is D2, and none of the other notes trigger anything else. And if I want to go to drum 2 and set that up to D sharp 2, so you can put the kit anywhere on your keyboard that you want by assigning the different MIDI notes. Per voice MIDI CC assignments. So the MIDI assignment table, I'm not going to go through everything. MIDI assignment table is in the updated manual in the GitHub. Oh yeah, I should mention that. There's a manual on the GitHub. I've converted it into LaTeX. So there's a bunch of markup files for all the different chapters. And there's rendered LaTeX, which is updated with all the features. And it's got the MIDI assignment tables, both the global and the per channel MIDI assignments. So you can check that out. It's a PDF. You can just download and print it out if you want to. Per voice morph as an automation target. So, per voice morph. So that's the thing that I showed you in here before, where you can change morph for all the individual drum voices. So there's drum 1, drum 2, drum 3, snare, cymbal, hi-hat. And you can automate them in a few different ways. You can do the CC mod wheel input that I showed you. You can also do the velocity automation. So I'm on drum 2. If I go into velocity destination, all the way at the end, there's the individual voice morph. And now what's going to happen is we're going to pattern. Let me just turn the decay down for that one. That's the third one. Turn it down on the snare. So I'm drum 2. So you see now drum 2 has a value, and whatever I set this to, whenever it hits the automated steps, it will reset it to the automation value. So that'll be whatever the velocity of the step is times whatever the automation depth in the velocity modulation is. So you see that number in the performance menu moves around a lot. So it moves around a lot because the morph kit of drum 2 will have a different velocity automation depth than the bass kit. So if I go into voice, drum 2, I go back into amount. So it's different, right? If I set them both to the same value, then it'll just assign the value once, and it doesn't float around anymore. Yeah, so just be aware the two different kit and morph layers can have some unexpected interactions when you're doing the individual morph automation. It's not going to crash anything. It's not going to, or it shouldn't crash anything. It's not going to affect anything. You can use it as a interesting musical element if you want to, if you think of some creative way to do that. So the next one is right. So the other way you can automate it is through step automation. So if I go into step mode on this guy, you'll see I can go into, I'm on drum 2, so I'll go into voice 2, individual voice morph, and set the value there, and let me turn it off on the velocity mod. There, and turn that down, and play. Oh, of course, it's still being automated on depth 0. So it's still set to that. Let me turn that off. Now it should work properly. Yeah, so when you hit the automation, it just sets the value once and then puts it back. Puts it back when another step retriggers. So you can set the morph value again on a different step if you want to. Then LFO we can also modulate. So I have a decent modulation routing. So let me turn that automation off for the step before we get any further. So this kit, I have the LFO of drum 1 modulating the morph value for voice 6. So voice 6, destination morph value. So I just need to assign some depth and some low frequency, and we should be able to hear that. So if I turn that off again, so there's my normal hi-hat sound. So now the LFO from drum 1 is modulating the morph value on the hi-hat. And if I go into the performance menu, you'll notice this time hi-hat morph is not updating. So the LFO is actually a separate interpolation layer. So what you can do with that is it will always modulate between the current voice morph value and the final morph kit. So if I have this all the way on the morph kit now, it's not modulating it at all. And as I move it back towards the original kit value, it'll modulate between this and the final morph kit values. So that's all the ways that you can modulate the morph. The next point on the README is samples imported as one-shots or loops. Okay, I haven't done the sample import since I updated the firmware on this yet. So the sample, I'll show you the sample import menu. Load samples, and then I press OK. So it'll go through, I think I have about 9 samples in my samples folder, and then there's a loops folder. So it'll go through the samples, and then it will go through the loops. So my loops are basically just the wavetable samples. So I'll show you what those sound like later. So you can have 2 folders. Basically, you got 2 folders in the SD card directory. You have a folder named samples and a folder named loops, and anything you put in the samples folder gets uploaded as a one-shot, so it only plays once, and anything you put in the loops folder is looped at the oscillator level, so it'll just keep looping whenever the drum triggers, and the length is governed by the decay length. You've got to be patient with the uploader. Of course, the samples, once they go into Flash, it's permanent storage. You only need to do it once to write the samples, and then you only need to, once you power down, power back up again, the samples remain in Flash. You just need to re-upload them if you want to change samples or if you update the firmware. You've got to be patient with it. Just I updated the screens a little bit to let you know that it's not dead. It's just got to write all of those bytes individually into the flash memory before it's good to go again. Yep. So now it's done. That's about, I think, so it's about 110, 115 samples, something like that. And I think it's about half the storage time. So if you've got, so it's probably about 150 kilobytes worth of samples. So if you've got more than that, just be patient with it while you're uploading your samples. Okay, so let's go put a sample on one of the drum voices. So drum 1, let's do one of my one-shots. Let's get the filter up. And that's getting into the loops now. So those are my loops, my wavetable samples. And those are my one-shots. So that's the sample import, and then the oscillator wave interpolation. Let me just turn just the first voice on. Maybe I'll give it a slightly less number of steps. So there's a global option to turn this on or off. The interpolation on and off sounds a little bit different. You may actually prefer to have it off if you kind of like the stepping quality in between the different samples. But here's what you do to use that. So I go back over to LFO. I'll assign this to voice 1, free running. Yeah, you want something nice and slow, probably like depth like this, sine is fine, and then destination oscillator waveform. So it's going through my one-shots now, but I'll go back over to oscillator. So that's the interpolation off. So you can hear it's kind of steppy, kind of grainy. And if I turn it on, it should get much smoother. Let me slow that down and not modulate it so heavily. So you can hear it stepping between the samples now. Probably easier if I turn the pitch mod envelope off. So that's the interpolation option, so make the wavetables a little bit smoother. Okay, so moving on to perf mode. So the roll thing, if I go into perf, let me do a different drum voice. Let's say this one. Actually, if I turn that off. So now it's just rolling at 16th notes. If I do something longer, like a half bar dotted. So before, the LXR used to reset the roll rate every time it rolled over onto another bar. So now it just tracks the roll independently, so you can set whatever roll you want, and it'll remember where each note should land. So that's the roll. The other thing that I added about rolls is, let me turn that back on. So let me put a fast roll rate. So I'll do 16ths again. And let me go back down to, let me do the first one again. That might sound kind of interesting. Okay, that's fine. So basically this is the shift record menu and the roll all, so I can change that to just record velocity, just record note, or just record trigger. So trigger will just turn the steps on and off. Note is kind of an interesting one. So what this will do is it will mask the rolls and only record the note data. So if I go here and turn on record, let me see, is that working? Roll. Let me put all, just so that we can hear what's going on. Oh, I'm in voice mode, that's why. So I've recorded a few rolls. If I go back to note mode, see, it's not recording any new notes. Okay, so it wasn't triggering on exactly the right steps. My timing is a little bit off, but now that it's making sure to record every step, if I want, I can mask different note values in there. And if I want, I can do the same with velocity. So that's the roll level here. So now there's different velocities recorded on those notes without recording any additional triggers. So you can, again, the roll modes, so record everything about the roll, record both note and velocity, record just velocity, record just the new note values, or record just a new trigger from the rolls. So that's the recordable rolls. Track transpose, so that's in shift perf. So you can select the different voice here while you're holding shift. And if I want to, say, drop this down a third, I just set transpose -3. So if you have a live performance, you want to drop something down an octave, you can set a transpose value, turn that on and off, and you can create another kind of musical variation that way. So instant pattern switching, so that is another global menu option. So if I go over to here, that's the option here. And basically what that does is when I select a new pattern in performance mode, it changes to the pattern instantly instead of waiting for the end of the bar. So So it'll just switch on the next substep, and yeah, so can change things a little bit faster. If you want to have a pattern that's like a fill or something, you can just switch into the fill and then switch back over to the original. Next one down is the per track pattern assignment. So what that is if I hold a voice button, so now all the rest of the voices are on pattern 2, but drum 1 is on drum 1. I can just switch it back and forth. So you can do that with any of the instruments. You can grab any track pattern from any of the patterns and play that. You have to keep straight in your own head which one is playing which track, but if you hit any of the pattern buttons, it will zap all of the tracks back to using just that pattern. And the looper, so that's these buttons here. Yeah, so this is, I think, half bar, and then the loop length gets shorter down to 64th. That says it's a bar, but I don't know about that. Let's see. Yeah, that's not a bar. But anyway. Yeah, so that'll set the loop length, and then this button here will make it 50% longer. So it basically dots the loop length. So you can get some kind of interesting musical effects that way. So so that's the looper. Yeah, you just hold whatever your interval is in that one, make it 50% longer, and it remembers basically where the sequencer should be if you weren't holding the loop, and just zaps you right back there. So it's like drop in, drop out, don't have to worry about it. The sequencer step mode. Okay, copy step, copy substep. Yeah, so again, that's pretty straightforward. The LXR was a little bit limited originally in what it could copy. So this is, you just copy, I can, so if I want to copy a step, I just copy, paste, and I can also do that with substeps. So I can go copy, and now it shows me the substeps. I choose a substep, I can copy it there. And now I have two substeps on that step, or I can copy substep to this one. Got to be careful with my buttons. And put it there. And now this one also has a second substep there. So you can copy a whole master step, or you can copy just an individual substep, both of those. And copy single voice track between patterns. So if I go back to this one, if I want to, let's say I want to copy that weird note arrangement, I can go copy this guy to this pattern, right? Yeah, so now that's on both the patterns. So different copy operations. Next feature down the list, so automation steps only. So basically this is if you, let's see, let me go over to step mode here. So I'll go back to the first pattern. So I'm on step mode. Let's say I want to turn this one into automation only, and then maybe I'll make this a longer decay length. Okay, so I'll make this one, this one, this one, this one. So I've made these automation, so half of these are automation only steps, and I will set them to, say, voice 1. What would be, yeah, okay, so I'll change the filter frequency, copy. So basically what it does on these velocity 0 steps is it doesn't re-trigger the envelope. So, oh, that has no automation destination now. What happened with that? Let's see, that's got the frequency. Yeah, it can be a little tricky to copy. Yeah, there's the automation steps. So on these steps, the ones that are in between, it doesn't re-trigger the envelope, it just sets the filter frequency, so you get this kind of, what's the filter frequency set to originally there? So it just gates the low pass frequency down to a lower value. So you get a little bit of tail on it. You can of course record live automation into those. So you can create something with a long decay envelope and then live automate a bunch of different parameters as it goes along. The next feature down, so the track pattern step timing scale. So the scaling per track. So that's, if I go into click, the second page, that's this guy. So basically what this does is it slows the track down. So if you want to go all the way to X8, that means you get 8 bars. And every sub-step is a 16th note. Yeah, so you can create 8-bar patterns that way if you want to. The important thing to note about the scale and also the step length, so these are saved per pattern. So each one of the patterns has its own individual scale and length. So if you want to set all of the different scales and different lengths for all the tracks, it might be a good idea to set that up first and then copy the pattern so you get all the same settings on the same patterns. The per voice morph settable by step automation, so I covered that already in the morph automation. Reset pattern Euclid changes, so let me go back to, and let me change the scaling back. Okay, and then I'll go into pattern generation. So I'll create some completely different pattern, and then if I if I just kind of re-enter the pattern gen mode, then it'll basically reset the pattern back to what I had when I entered the mode. So if I go into, let me go into pat gen, maybe to this one. The only thing you got to keep in mind with the pattern generator is if I do some change in the length, it will change the offset of the different pattern tracks. So if it doesn't sound the same after you reset the patterns, then you also got to go back into the performance mode and do the pattern realign to get the patterns lined up again. So you do the reset from the pattern gen, and then you do the realign there. So the thing about the pattern generator is once you leave that page, it commits it to the tracks. So if you want to do, so I change the rotation. Should. Okay, that's interesting. So it should apply that. Let's see if I go to a different pattern. Yeah, so now it's applied the rotation and reset it. Now that I've left the pattern, let's see. Oh. And if I want to reset that before I leave, so that just resets it. File, okay, moving down to the next feature group. So the file load save mode. So this one I can't really demonstrate it. Basically I've been showing that to you all along. So performance and all files include the morph kit with them, so you don't have to load a morph separately. So just load up the all file or the performance file, and it's got all of the kit values and all the morph values. And then the shift play function. Let me get. Yeah, I have some funny automation on drum 1 now, but so the shift play basically reloads the last file that you loaded. So it throws out any edits, so be a little careful with that. But you can use that if you're tweaking things in a performance and then you want to get back to the way the file was when it was loaded. You can just press shift play play, and it does that for you. Load a kit by MIDI bank change. Okay, let me get my MIDI bank change set up. Turn that guy off. So I've got pretty much the default kit set in here. So let me set the bank change. Let me make sure that my global setting is set to bank to performance. So I am changing kits with bank change. So I've just got my I got my Octatrack over here that's going to send a bank change message. So that's bank change. Let's see, that's 0 kit. Whatever is slot 3, whatever is slot 4. Back to 0, so let's see. So basically you're cycling through those just with a MIDI bank change message. And we can also do that with loading performance files. That's the next feature down the list. So load a performance file by MIDI bank change. So that's this option. So I'll put that on, and then I'll send bank change 0 again. I'll send bank change 1. So that's loaded the performance file in for me. If I go back to performance 0. So that's performance 0. So I can change my performance files with a MIDI command. Load individual drum voices from kit files. So if I go into the load menu, you will also see load entries for drum 1, drum 2, drum 3, snare. So if I want to just load a different snare, so I can do that with all the different instruments. And then the background file loading. So if I turn that on, that's tells you what files you want to load in the background. So here I just have it set to background load patterns. But if I set it to the total file set, and then I'll go into load all file, and the sequencer's got to be playing. So it told me very briefly loading in the background, and it'll load the all file. Okay, so now nothing about the sound has changed, but you'll notice the performance button is flashing just as a hint. So click that. So it'll tell me it wants a new pattern, and then when I select a pattern, it will change the kit and the pattern at the same time. You can also do individual track changes into the different patterns before you decide to, and it'll change the individual instruments before you decide to commit to the completely different pattern. So that's all the different features. Again, if you notice anything that isn't working correctly, or if I broke something that you liked about previous versions of the firmware, let me know on the Discord channel. Yeah, send me a message, put a bug report in, and I'll try and get that fixed up as quick as I can. All right, well, I'm gonna be working on the LXR02 firmware that I have in mind. But if you send me any notes for cool things you'd like to see in this, I'll think about it. And of course, you can always fork the repository and start working on new features It's a pretty easy code repository to start working on things with. So thanks to Julian, thanks to everybody that's worked on the LXR. Go out there and enjoy the firmware and make some beats.